If we intend on closing the gender pay gap, we have two things that we need to work about. The people that are doing the systemic work to change what's happening out there in our systems, like you, Archita, are tackling that. Me, I'm tackling personal accountability, right? And how do we make moves in spite of what's happening in our environment? We need both sides of this coin in order to really make real progressive change. Hi, Embracing Only family. This is Olivia Cream. Welcome back to another Real Talk.
Hey, I'm so excited because it's been a long time, Olivia, since we've had one of these Real Talks. And we have some really spicy topics to get into. So get right into it. You recently held a workshop for a bunch of women leaders, and you saw 2 or 3 consistent themes that kept coming up. And I feel like we've heard this a lot from a lot of our listeners when they DM us and message us. So what were some of those consistent themes with women leaders today?
So I did a workshop for a group of senior women who wanted to really understand how to win in the workplace. And we got into it, and the format was pretty much the same. By now, you guys know what I'm going to say in terms of the trends of how people are thriving in these spaces. But there were a couple topics that came up that maybe we can just jump into here. There were 3 specific things that came up that continuously come up when you talk to ambitious women who are having a hard time navigating their corporate careers. Now, the first one is, what do you want? So that was the very first part of the workshop. I asked the question, what is your primary concern in the workplace today? As a woman in corporate, what's your primary concern in the workplace today? And what do you want? And Archita, I would tell you 90% of the room had a hard time clearly articulating. Have you come across this issue as well?
Oh my gosh, all the time. All the time. And I even think about my days back in corporate. I would say that I was very clear on what I wanted when I was at corporate until I realized what I wanted was following someone else's version of what I should have. The thing is, I was like, oh, I want to have this title. I want to be able to have this impact. I want to be able to help support these individuals. But a lot of the times when I now reflect back on it, and of course, you can only do a lot of this stuff looking back sometimes, but there's so much value and clarity in the process as well. But now when I look back, I noticed I had to ask myself the most important question: who's what I want am I chasing?
Oh, this is such a great question. I think to repeat it back for the audience, in case you missed it, because it came so quickly, the brilliance of Archita here, whose want are you acting?
Yeah.
And that really boils down to the question, are you doing what you're doing right now because it is in alignment with your values, because it allows you to live the way you want to live? It allows you to make the money that you want to make. It gives you the flexibility that you need for whatever reason. Or are you doing what you're doing now because some Yahoo told you that you couldn't do it?
Oh my God.
So many of us fall into that trap.
Oh God. Yes, God. If you're 10 or 15 years into your career, you should not be chasing some Yahoo's no as your yes. That's just a waste of your energy, your time, and quite frankly, just quit your job. That's probably better. Because honestly, it's absurd. If you start chasing people's no's, you're such wasted energy of your brilliance, right?
And it's out of alignment. And I think when I say out of alignment, I want women to really understand what I'm saying. Out of alignment isn't this foo, oh my God, I'm not getting exactly what I want, or operating from a place of entitlement. When I say out of alignment, let me give you some details about what that actually means. There are studies that a quick Google search can yield for you about how women, especially minority women, are suffering from stress-related diseases, right? Chronic diseases that are stress related. Where does the stress come from? It comes from misalignment, right? It comes from you forcing your body, your energy, your mind, your spirit into a space that was not meant for you. And having to operate in that space causes the type of stress that is resulting in women losing their hair, imbalancing their hormones, getting fibroids, getting arthritis, getting lupus. The list goes on and on. The chronic diseases that women are suffering from that are stress related. So when you hear misalignment, it should alarm you because it has real consequences for your overall health when you're not thinking about, is this actually for me in the beginning?
Yes, things might be going really well in your job, right? Your quote unquote job, and you're getting through your day. And if you're, irrespective of what kinds of responsibilities we all have, anything outside of work, all those responsibilities can all add up. And we might feel like, okay, we've figured this out. It's manic, it's crazy, it's busy, but we've figured this out. And then suddenly something happens that's out of your control one day. And then you finally start asking your question, what am I aligned to? What am I chasing? And at that point, fear can be the one that leads you. These external factors will then potentially lead you to making decisions you probably were not ready to make. So today, I cannot stress this enough. When things are comfortable, I say comfortable knowing that it might not be like comfort in all its sense, but when things are comfortable, and we have significant privilege to even ask ourselves these questions while the world is on fire and your faces are at war, right? So we have that privilege, use it. But while things are comfortable, really take time to ask yourself this question. And I was sharing this with Olivia just before we hit record. Was I saw this whole conversation around exchange rate, right? So a lot of times when you think about the concept of exchange rate, based on trading, the markets and everything else, right? The currency exchange rates get set, right? Buying, selling, etc. The same thing with our time. What experiences and relationships and goals are worth trading our time for? Have you set what your exchange rate is? It is one of the most powerful things we can do, because guess what's happening? When we don't deliberately set it for ourselves, but am I going to trade my experiences, relationships, and goals for, things will just naturally find their space into our time. And then we'll realize that, oh my gosh, my exchange rate is actually like really steep right now. And I have no space for things I actually want to do, because all these other things have creeped in because I never took the time to set that aside. So if I could ask you to do one thing, like one prompt is, what are few time worthy things from this past week that you were like, these experiences, these relationships, these goals were worth trading my time for? And what were, if you were to make two columns, what were worth your time and what were not worth your time? And that's a great place to start with regards to what you were talking about, Olivia, like alignment in general.
100%, it's a great place to start. And I think the other recommendation I'll put here, because I love this book so much, you guys have heard me mention it. If you're struggling to figure out what your values are, where your authenticity lies, and really what you want to do to get clarity around that, I highly recommend you pick up the book, Where Will You Be 5 Years From Now by Kobe Yamada. It tends to just be our work. Right? You need to be thinking about your life in terms of a Ferris wheel. All the things that make up you, your spiritual life, your health and fitness, your mental well-being. What do you want to do for vacations? What mission do you want to pursue in the world? There are so many categories for you to think about, because your work plan should include all of you, right? You shouldn't just be compartmentalizing. And that's a sure sign to figure out if you're in misalignment, is if you can only be a sliver of yourself at work and nothing else is getting tended to, you've got some work to do. Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate, or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, and the reality is, if you have caregiving responsibilities, whatever they may be, like parents or siblings or kids or pets or whatever it might be, those are like real responsibilities. And the reality is that we'll always feel like we're not giving those things enough time, right? We'll always feel like, I don't want to take that away from anybody. If you never stop to ask yourself the question, am I in alignment? What are the things worth trading my time for? What are my values? What helps me live out my authenticity like every single day? We lose out on the opportunity on truly living and accumulating the true luxuries of life. And this was an interesting quote from someone I probably have never watched a movie of, Clint Eastwood. He's 94 years old, okay? And he said this, which is, luxury isn't about what you own, it's about what you feel. And he had this beautiful quote, and I think we should put it up on Embracing Only at some point. But he says, what are a few ways to reclaim the real treasures of life, right? So he's like, look back on this week and remember the last time you laughed until it hurt. That's really, and I'm not trying to be fool or anything, but it's truly what's really beautiful about life. Like when you think about last week, what was that? Did you have laughter with friends, with your husband, with your kids, or whatever, Hassan Minaj, whatever it might be, right? What made you really belly laugh, right? When was the last time you stood outside and let the rain wash away your inhibitions, your worries, your fears, or whatever? It sounds absurd. Or jump into the sea or the ocean and like just let the vastness of what nature has to give you really pick away at what you have, because it's really healing. And when was the last time a simple embrace made you feel whole?
Archita, it's so beautiful. And I love this because I think, to get real in this real talk here, you and I have been chatting and I have been so off lately.
Yes.
And I've been off because I got sucked into the grind again, right? I got sucked into hustle culture. I got sucked into the grind, and I started to forget that, which so often we do this, that this world is here for us to enjoy. We came down here on this planet at this point in time to learn how to love, to learn how to have all sorts of different experiences, not just to work our bones away until we retire and then maybe have 5 years, if God willing, we're healthy enough to enjoy those last 5 years of retirement. No, ladies, that is the trap. That is the trap. Right. And so I've had to actually physically start a journal, you guys. And every time I'm feeling my best, I'm like, oh my God, I'm having an amazing time. I write it down in my journal, what was happening when I was having that amazing time. And the patterns for myself are starting to become clear. Oh my God, these are the things that breathe life into me. As I'm expending all of this energy, that's the stuff that replenishes me. So I got to balance that stuff out. And I highly encourage everyone else listening to do something similar. Take note of when you really feel your best self. What are you doing? And how can you create those experiences more often in your day-to-day life? This is designing your life. So when we talk about career strategy, when I coach women on developing a career strategy, it's really about taking control of your life and designing it in a way that allows you to be your best, most healed version of yourself, not just to go earn a bunch of money. And here's the fun fact, ladies. When you are operating in alignment in the best, most healed version of yourself, the money is going to come. The money is going to come.
Amen to that. I'll say this. I was telling Olivia this, my last week has just literally felt that. There were spaces I would always wonder, can I show up and be all parts of myself? But I asked myself for almost 15 years. But I was like, and I would believe, and I would try to make myself believe that, oh yeah, I'm showing up in all parts of myself. But this last week, and I'm telling you, this was work like over the last 4 years, right? To get to this last week. Last week was the first time in my entrepreneurial journey to date. There have been certain moments on certain stages where I was just like, oh my gosh, I've come alive and shown up in alignment with all of my values and everything that I am. But this last week truly felt like the culmination of that work over the last 4 years. I can't stress enough what you just said, Olivia. You start attracting opportunities. I was in a room with a proposal. I was called on to put a proposal for this really large not for profit out of the Netherlands. Okay. I didn't have to talk about aspects of allyship or diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like I didn't have to go into like the basics of anything. We were operating at not the foundational level. We were operating at such a deep level of understanding, recognizing how systemic change was needed in order to drive this social change. And I was like, girl, how exciting. I'm confident I'm going to get this, win this thing. But even if I don't, I'm like the opportunity to create a proposal for something so aligned was unreal, right? And then the second thing, Olivia, was this other event that I did. This was with Adidas. And I would show up in these Fortune 500 spaces. I would show up loud. Loud didn't mean I was all of me. That's the other thing too. We assume that when we are loud and we are outspoken, we're showing up in all aspects of ourselves. You can still like curtain and curb your enthusiasm in certain ways because you're not sure if you can say all those things out loud in this space. And maybe it's a season of my life or it's having done this work or whatever. Those 4.5 hours with this group, it was all senior leaders, vice presidents and above, like in this group that I would normally come in, make myself small to tend myself to power. And I just came in as like Archita, I would say the intern at 18, before she was like impacted or not impacted, was told to shrink herself in different spaces, right? But in a more thoughtful way, but still, and your energy just feels, and I can feel my energy now. Like I'm still like from it because that money was amazing. I'm like, yes, I want more money like this because it was in alignment with what I was doing. And last year I've worked with different kinds of clients and it was great. Don't get me wrong, but I cannot tell you this thing that you said, the work that you just have challenged all the ladies to do. And men here, if you're listening, is so critical. Getting really clear on who you are, what you want to do, and where you want to do it.
It's the foundation for success, ladies, is clarity, right? So if you are not clear on what you want, and before I go there, I would say the second thing that came up is this fear of money. I'm just going to call it a fear of money, okay? Talking about it, doing the math to know how much you need to live the way you want. Let me say that again. How much you need to live the way you want. Not how much you need to just pay your bills and scrape by. We don't care about that number. We care about the number where you first define how you want to live your life. You have to take care of an ailing parent. You have to take care of kids. You want them to go to the best school. Maybe you're a traveler and you want to travel to some epic places 6 times a year. Maybe you are a traveler and you need something remote because you just don't want to be tied to an office. Once you understand the way you want to live, then you back into how much money do I need to live in my ideal state? And then you go have some conversations around this. Now, the trick is how you have the conversations, right? But this is the foundational knowledge that you have to craft, to design your ideal life. You have to know these things about yourself. If you don't know this stuff about yourself, it's almost like a business not knowing what's on their P&L. That's how important this is. You cannot run a business without understanding your finances, what's coming in and what's going out. This is the start, right? And then I got a question, and you see me getting passionate here because I'm like, I just want to shake everyone when this happens. I got a question. One of the ladies, as soon as I started to talk about money, I see people start to get twitchy, right? Like people are immediately twitchy. They don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. All of that is great. You're uncomfortable. You're going to be fine. But you get into the work of talking about the money, and what you realize is that everything that you've been taught, what I heard is, well, culturally and societally, we're taught not to talk about money because people might think you're trying to show off or it's taboo, blah, blah, blah. Who benefits from these social norms? It
Not
sure isn't
you.
you.
Yes, not you.
It sure isn't you. So if you don't want to talk about money, fine, stay broke. I don't know what to tell you. It's literally, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's literally
Say
that
that
simple.
again, Olivia. Say that again. If you don't want to talk about
Fine,
money,
stay broke. That is what you're choosing. You are choosing to be limited in your financial success because you won't choose the courage to go against or to unlearn everything that you were taught to keep you controlled, keep you in a box. You're choosing not to unlearn those things. So you're going to stay broke, right? If we intend on closing the gender pay gap, we have two things that we need to work about. The people that are doing the systemic work to change what's happening out there in our systems, like you, Archita, are tackling that. Me, I'm tackling personal accountability, right? And how do we make moves in spite of what's happening in our environments? We need both sides of this coin in order to really make real progressive change. But today, I'm telling you, you can start doing the work for yourself by stop being so doggone uncomfortable and talk about money. Because once you start talking about it, guess what? You're going to learn how much your job is really supposed to pay. You're going to learn, are you overpaid or underpaid? Are you selling yourself short or not? You might actually learn that you're a lot closer to your dream than you think you are. Maybe it's one promotion away that we're talking about getting you to your financial goals, right? You have to create a plan, and money and comfortability with money has to be a part of that plan. Otherwise, you will forever trade time for money. And in some cases, we're selling our souls for a paycheck. Ladies, we're in these spaces where we hate our lives, doing jobs that we absolutely hate, coming home and kicking the dog and yelling at the kid and pissing off our husbands because we are selling our souls for money instead of being in alignment and designing your life. That's what's happening in these streets.
oh my gosh, don't kick dogs, yell at your kids, that's okay. And yell at your husband, that's also fine. But don't kick dogs.
All of it's happening. We're doing all of it.
There's this whole skit you'll have to watch on Netflix by Hassan Minaj. It's a new one that just talks about how obsessed we are about our dogs and how less obsessed we are about actual people, which is very, very introspective and how we really need to pay attention to. But anyway, I go sidetracking. There was a third point that we're almost at the end here, Olivia. What was a third nugget that kind of came out of this conference that you had and this session that you ran with them? You said first one, clarity is king, queen, and everything in between. Two is money. Get away from this idea that money is fear, money is yucky, because if you don't want to talk about money, you're going to stay broke. And what was the third one?
Yep. And the third one is waiting to be tapped. Okay. And I almost feel like that third one should have maybe followed closely the second one, because waiting to be tapped is just as bad as not knowing where you're going, right? It's part two of not knowing where you're going or not having clarity. And it's also part two of you being burnt out, right?
Yes.
You're burnt out because you're saying yes to things that are taking your time and energy that are not moving you forward at all. You're just like spinning in place, right? So you're saying yes to a bunch of stuff that maybe makes you feel good in the moment, or maybe doesn't make you feel good, but you feel obligated to say yes for whatever reason. This activity is not helping you whatsoever, but we have these trauma-based responses to continue to stay in motion, even if the motion is doing nothing but depleting our energy, right? That is happening. And then at the end of the day, we're like, I'm just going to put my head in the sand and I'm going to cover my head and I'm going to work super hard and I'm going to wait for somebody to see me and recognize me for my brilliance. Guess how often that works out? Literally almost never. You might be lucky. You might be in the 1% that lucks out and this strategy works for you. And I say strategy loosely, comically, because it's not a strategy. It's not a strategy, right? Ladies, stop waiting to be tapped. Know what you want, drive towards your goal, take the reins on your career and stop waiting for someone to recognize your brilliance. You recognize it and choose what you're going to go do with it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's so much value in there. I actually posted about this today, which is what are you saying no to? And it was almost a question to myself, because there was a joke in one of the WhatsApp groups. One of the guys every week comes up with a new idea, or I come up with a new idea, and we both are like egging each other on to be like, oh my God, we should do it. We should do it. And so today he was like, Achita, we need to stop doing this nonsense, because we are not getting clear on, no, we should actually not do this. We should not do this. We should not do that. But instead, we're always coming with what ideas to say yes to all the time, you know? And so the thing is too, you spoke about a quote unquote strategy. Luck is not a strategy. That's a fact, right? And one of the ways to create luck for yourself is what I call like breadcrumbs. So you might go do a bunch of different things, but as you're doing them, think strategically how they form the breadcrumbs towards where you want to go. Because that's how luck happens. Is because there was a breadcrumb here, someone happened to walk by and they're like, oh my gosh, no way. Olivia does this stuff too. Boom, Olivia, I have this amazing opportunity. We should collaborate together, right? So strategically identify your breadcrumbs that take you to where you want to go. But along the way, like I've created time for myself now to really ask myself strategically, and I'm putting this in air quotes right now, what am I saying no to every week? And if I start seeing my list of no is stopping at one bullet point, I ask myself a lot of questions that week. And so we're almost at the end here, Olivia. So as you like bring us to a close, it was a nice little short re-engagement on Real Talk with Olivia and Archita. So what do you want to leave all our listeners with as we spoke through clarity, money, and waiting to be tapped?
Here's what I want to leave our listeners with. Ladies, whatever the statistics are today, you're reading the McKinsey Women in the Workplace, or you're listening to some of the stats being shared if you're in the States around this election cycle and what's happening to women in their jobs, or any other source of data that is telling you how difficult it is to get ahead. I want you to silence that noise. And I want you to hear from me directly. You can thrive in your corporate space. And if you decide that what you want is to pivot out of corporate, Archita can help you with that, and you can thrive there as well. You do not have to be a statistic unless you believe and you make a choice that those numbers are relevant to you. So if you want to understand how to thrive in spite of your boss, in spite of the fact that you might have taken a pay cut, in spite of the fact that you might have gone on an off ramp and maybe took some time out of the corporate space and now you're pivoting back in spite of being stuck, in spite of being frustrated, give me a call, or give any coach, career coach, a call. That is what we are here for, to help you get unstuck and to help you thrive in these spaces. But you have to be prepared and willing to do the work. And the work, a lot of the work is just being courageous and willing to stop moving for a second, ladies, and to sit down and ask yourself some questions and develop a strategy. You can do this. I promise you can.
That I know will come through on our WhatsApp and DMs, etc. We're here to support you on this journey. Thank you all for joining us on our Real Talk episode, and we look forward to sharing more. Have a great day, everybody.